K.T.E. Put it together and what do you get? A wrestling podcast that reacts to WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to talk about.
There certainly is, and we'll get there with no delay. Connor, overall, the weekend, I was talking to Ryan a little bit. Your feelings, thoughts, and if you had to give an overall grade to each night, and then put it together for an overall grade itself.
Okay. I think Sunday won the night. Or Sunday won the whole weekend. I think Sunday had a better build. It seemed like the crowd was
Agreed.
more enthusiastic, and it sounded like, from what I heard, I think Michael Cole said it. It sounded like it was a lot warmer that day instead of it was on Saturday.
Okay.
So maybe the crowd's not quite into it because it's a little chilly, which is fair, or whatever. But Sunday definitely won the weekend. Overall, as a whole, Saturday was probably like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. It was
Really? That
I would
high?
I
Wow.
would go that way because we got some title changes that we needed to happen.
Sure.
And so that's why I went 6.5, 7 because of the title change aspect. The crowd wise, they were non-existent 90% of Saturday. Yeah, when Jay won, we got the yee 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 and everybody was singing.
Yeah.
But then it's like, other than that, it's like you could have probably heard a pin drop. Like you just that's how rough the crowd was.
Yeah, they really didn't react until the main event.
Yeah, and then Sunday I give that a 8.5. I think we got some good matches. The Fatal 4-Way match, I think, in my opinion, stole the show the whole weekend. It was high flying. It was impactful. Braun Breaker hit 3 or 4 spears, and then we got Dom getting an IC title reign, which, I mean, yeah, as much as I dislike Dom, I'm kind of behind it now, and that's what happens with WWE. They get me to hate a character, and then something like this happens, and then you watch the crowd reaction with it. You're like, oh, I can kind of get behind that. So,
Well, it gives him the
um,
hardware to validate
yes,
how much he's improved as a wrestler.
right, and yeah, okay, him and Finn they're gonna do this thing back and forth. Probably get them a backlash match. Probably they're gonna split up, whatever. But like I said, overall, Sunday got an 8.5 because of just the enthusiasm of the crowd. We kicked off with a triple threat match and it delivered. I
Yeah.
think I'm glad
Yeah.
they kept the EO as champion because we didn't need Rhea to have one, or we didn't need Bianca to win right now. EO won that title for a reason. WWE sees a vision with her. So I'm very glad they didn't pull the trigger and give it to Bianca or Rhea. But like I said, so overall weekend, if you kind of add up then divide, I'd probably give it probably about an 8 out of 10 for the whole weekend, just because you gotta have to add divide. So Saturday definitely was a little but I think Sunday definitely saved it for the whole weekend. So
So I think you're a little bit higher on it than me and Ryan were. We gave night one as low as a 5, a 50, a 5 out of 10, and as high as a 6.
yeah,
And that is purely based on the triple threat alone.
yeah.
The rest, we watched it all together. We did reactions and predictions, but man,
Yeah, that watching WrestleMania Saturday was definitely rough, but I think what saved it for me was the title changes. Because, like I said,
no, I mean it was noteworthy.
right,
Yeah,
right,
and
we
and
needed those were title changes that were needed. So that's why I think it saved it a little bit for me. I'm
mhm.
not saying that we weren't sitting there like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. Well, we're finally hitting the main event. It's like we got the title changes we needed on Saturday. That saved it for me. So
It was very noteworthy,
yeah,
at the very least. But I will counter with that is yes, it was noteworthy, and that in a sense could contribute to it.
hmm
I blocked out a lot of those, and more so thought about okay, what did the match quality give me?
right,
And the match quality as a whole at WrestleMania was just not very good.
yeah,
I we had, if I remember right, we had 2 matches go over 20 minutes.
yeah.
And the third that I would extend to that would be the Logan Paul and AJ Styles match, which went 17. Everything else was below 15 minutes or 15 and under
for a 4 hour show and a
over 2
3 hour
nights.
pre-hour show. It's like, yeah, you kind of want more of a match. You want a longer match. But like I said, like we've talked about many, many, many times, is they've had 10 weeks to build this up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last 4 weeks have felt rushed. So it felt like half these matches were given to us last 4 weeks. We knew two of the matches back after that Royal Rumble.
Mhm.
Everything else was elimination chamber. Then since then it was like, oh hey, we're gonna sprinkle in Rhea and Io and Bianca. We're gonna sprinkle in El Grande Americano and Rey Mysterio, which ended up Rey getting hurt.
And that's exactly why some of the matches that I think could have been great weren't, because of that lack of story. I think of AJ and Logan. That match was good,
Yeah,
but so many people in the crowd were checked out, and I've seen a lot of the chatter online that so many people checked out near that match as well, because it's a match that had no story,
it was
no
just
stakes in
yeah,
it. It was just an exhibition match where people did good moves and good wrestling.
yeah,
It's what, if you could dream up in your head what an AJ Styles Logan Paul match would look like, it looked exactly like that.
right.
And if you don't have a story to go along with it,
There's not really much to
yeah,
go
but
off of.
in sticking to night one specifically, I think night one super disappointed me. The rest of the matches on the card outside of the triple threat felt like it could have been on Extreme Rules,
Yeah,
not Mania. And then the one match that I would say felt just like a Raw match was the New Day Tag Team Championship.
yeah, which I'm very disappointed still because Friday we're getting a triple threat TLC match on SmackDown. It's like,
Why couldn't that have
why
been?
couldn't that have taken over the Raw tag titles? Like, you could have had no tag title match announced for Mania, and then for last Friday, Nick Aldis goes, you know what? We're in Vegas tomorrow night. You guys are going on in a triple threat match. That would have probably saved the whole night on Saturday.
That was a crescendo moment of, wow, they're doing TLC. But guess what, guys? It's on free commercial ridden TV.
Yeah, it's like, oh, great. Now, unless they make it the first match and it's an hour commercial free,
Well, then we'll talk.
then we'll have a conversation. But that'll be a topic for next week.
And not that I'm against that, because we've had some epic TLC matches in the early to mid 2000s on Raw,
Yeah,
on SmackDown. So not that I'm against having great matches on TV.
right.
But what I don't want is, I don't want them to say, here's this epic match on SmackDown. And I know I'm deviating a little bit, but this is the frustration I had of them not being on the Mania card. I don't want it to be, hey, let's have this awesome match announced for SmackDown so we can get people's viewership in. And then guess what? We're only going to give these guys 12 minutes
Yeah,
of TV. And it's like, well, then why? The whole point of putting on SmackDown is so you can give them extra time and pump
Yeah.
up the card, because Mania was probably already stacked, as we saw the matches that we got were fairly limited
yeah.
in time. But to me, the crescendo of, you guys are all in TLC is a Mania-worthy match.
Yeah, those kind of matches are definitely big pay-per-view matches. TLC for sure, especially with it being a tag team match. Like, that's what WrestleMania was in the early, like, late 90s, was the TLC match at Mania.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hardys, the Dudleys, the Edge and Christian. You had Rhino and RVD. You had all of these tag teams. Threw them together in a TLC match. That match was those matches were amazing. If you've never watched them, go watch the highlights of those.
Oh, yeah.
90% of Jeff Hardy's craziness comes from those matches.
But so for me, night one, it's within the six and a half range for me personally. And then night two, I've heard some people, and I do not disagree with this, because I think it is a fairly easy take that night one was worse than night two. But I've
Yeah.
heard somebody say that because night one ended up on such a higher note than night two did, that night one was better, and I
I
completely
don't
disagrey with that.
I disagree with that 100%. Night one was the only reason night one ended off so well is because you had Paul Heyman doing what he did. Going into night two, you start out with another triple threat match, which is a solid match to kickstart.
Yeah.
But then as you get later into the card, you're like, okay, you have a Randy Orton and Joe Hendry, which great on you, WWE, for putting a TNA World Champion at WrestleMania. That's outstanding. You guys are promoting another company. That's awesome.
Mhm.
We love that kind of stuff. You guys talked about AAA all weekend. We love that stuff. I
Yeah.
love that they're branching out to other companies. Um, but then you go into that match, and Randy's like, okay, a little 5-10 minute squash match. No big deal. We expected Randy to win,
Yeah.
but it was just kind of fun to see. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, you hear, it's like, that's awesome. So, and he gets his WrestleMania moment where he turns around and then gets RKO'd. That's the best part.
But you look at it like this too, because I've heard some people say that after the Orton match that it fell off, and I look at it and I think, well, okay, even if you have Logan Paul, AJ Styles, the women's tag match, and John Cena and Cody Rhodes, all three under deliver, you had 4 really good matches at the
Right.
beginning of
And
the
and
show.
see, that's what I was getting at. It's like the way they position night 2, I'm not a fan of. I'm not saying we should have put the women back to back. That's not what I'm getting at. We could
Mm.
have done triple threat. What other match do we have on Sunday? We could have done Randy and Joe early. You could have then moved on to the IC title Fatal 4-Way,
Mm.
and then you could have put the women on. I don't understand why. Were they the second to last match?
Yeah, they were the second to last.
Why? Why are we giving them the second last? I get Becky Lynch return. I'm not upset by that by any means. But why?
But it was a nothing match.
Right. But why is that the second to last match before almost not, it is not, but almost the worst WrestleMania main event of all time? I'm fine
Oh
with the
wow.
outcome, but the match wise,
It was kind of boring.
it kind of reminded me of Brock and Roman at WrestleMania 34 or Roman and Undertaker WrestleMania 32. It's like, I'm not saying it's the worst main event of all time. We got history. Congratulations to John on his 17. It's great to see. I've been a fan of John my whole life, so it's awesome as a fan to witness that. To witness somebody breaking that record that nobody was going to break. But at the same time, Stone Cold came out to announce something. The Rock doesn't show up, and the only single bit of interference is from that piece of crap who thinks he likes wrestling. But Triple H, I'm sorry to tell you, he doesn't give a shit about wrestling. He gives a shit about how much money you give him.
I think that's
But
true.
that is
Yeah.
the worst possible thing you could have done. You had this moment to where while they're both laying there, Cody's slowly getting up. All of a sudden, Rock's music hit. Then it gets interesting, and then all of a sudden you hear glass breaking. It's like, oh, but you don't. And
I would argue wrestling fans and myself included, I think if you didn't include Travis Scott at all, it would have been a better match.
yes,
And I'm not saying that's to say that I don't want Travis Scott in my wrestling ever. I'm not saying that because of that. What I mean by that is if you have Travis Scott come out, there's an expectation Dwayne's going to show up
that's
too.
what I thought. The minute he was standing up at the ring holding that stupid title he brings out, it's like, okay, cool, maybe The Rock's gonna show up, and then he doesn't. I'm like,
Whereas if you don't have anybody show up at all and you just have Cena does what he does and they have an extra 5 to 10 minutes of the match,
right,
I think we're in a better boat than if Travis Scott comes in and he's your only interference spot.
right,
That's disappointing for people because it makes you feel like, oh, The Rock's going to show up or he's going to do more than he did because all he did was distract, eat a crossroads. Cena kicks him in the nuts, hit him with a title belt, boom.
yeah.
I It was a 20-minute match, 21-minute match.
Felt
When
like it took forever.
when Travis Scott came out, and here's the other thing. Oh my gosh, he had the audacity to do a full slow entrance down that long ramp, like he's that big of a freaking deal.
Yeah. Again, Triple H said after, he goes, "Man, Travis has such a passion for wrestling. You gave him millions of dollars to show up. You paid for his music at WrestleMania. He doesn't give a shit about wrestling."
He milked that entrance for all it was. He's just like,
And
yeah.
the crowd pop was, eh. But and that's where I was getting at. It's like, why couldn't you have put, I don't know, you could even put the Fatal 4-Way before that match and made that would have, the hype of that match going into Cody and Cena would have dwindled down the hype of that match, which I would have been fine with.
I could see their thought, though. You look at it and you think, oh, Becky Lynch returning. That is a big moment that people are going to love before the main event. But, it's like this. Ah!
It's
And then it's over.
It also doesn't help when you give a no talent, useless Intercontinental Champion double titles. That makes no sense. Stupidest decision I ever seen. Why was she even in the match to begin with? Why was Bayley supposed to be in that match? Why are we one? They're disrespecting the crap out of Bayley. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like so you had the 4 good matches on Sunday. Then you go into Randy and Joe. It's like, okay, it's a gimmicky match. Randy's gonna get his match at Mania, whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, but and then you go into AJ and Logan, and it's like, that match is whatever. I'm upset about the winner. That was a horrible decision on WWE's part.
Sound like Karrion Kross.
Oh, dude, he is pissed. Do you see what he went on the podcast?
The recap afterwards. Yeah.
Dude, you need to push that man there, Triple H, because he's a monster.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching the show with Cole, and he's largely a casual fan for the most part, but he saw 2 things. One, he watched the main event, and he was someone that just felt, yeah, I wish there was more there.
Yeah.
And he was super disappointed not only with how it turned out. He's okay with Cena winning in that respect of like, oh, it's a good story, but
right.
his comment was this for the main event. He said if their job was to make the inclusion of Travis Scott and the result feel as underwhelming as it did, they did a good job in making me hate that outcome in how it turned out.
Right.
But if their job was to try to create an epic moment with Travis Scott, then it failed.
Oh, it failed miserably.
And I think both can be true.
Yes.
Because people are hating on how that main event turned out.
Again, I saw this TikTok video. The guy was like, it's like the SpongeBob, like when Patrick and him have the little clam and they're like the baby diapers or whatever, and it's the guy sitting there. And he's like, somebody said this isn't that bad, and he's like, it's like it shows previous when it showed like Hogan, I think Psycho Sid, and it showed all these main events like Brock, Roman, Taker, Roman, and it even showed Triple H versus Randy. I was like, that wasn't a horrible main event, but you had the hype of the Undertaker and Shawn match that had to live up to. So
there's a lot of, we've talked about that in the past. There's a lot of circumstances for that.
But this one just, it's up there, man. It's up there for being a bad main event. And I love Cena, I do, but John's not.
It's a match purely there for the moment.
I think Randy beats him at St. Louis. Because as we saw Monday, Randy hit him with the RKO. So, I think we're getting an early title change. We'll talk about that next week, or here in a bit. But
the other thing that I was going to say as far as Cole, I was trying to explain to him what Karrion Kross does and his whole mind gimmick background changing type of thing, and it was really hard for him to wrap his mind around what that was. He was like, well, why didn't he just like attack people or do things? And it's like, no, he does mind games and he tries to change them from the inside, and it's like, okay. So for a casual wrestling fan to get, that's what this guy does. He's mysterious and ooh. But Karrion Kross is great. The little things that he does.
Right.
I don't know if you saw it last week with his match on AJ. He purposely put his hands behind his back when he was waiting for the phenomenal forearm, just so AJ could get a win and get more confidence going into Mania.
Right.
It's like the little stuff like that. But as far as my ranking for night 2 goes, I thought it was way better than night 1. We're sitting there at a 7.5, 8 for me, within that range. Overall, I think it's a Mania worthy of 7.
Yeah.
A 7 out of 10 as a whole for Mania. I was Going in, I was largely disappointed with it. Going out of it, I was largely disappointed.
Yeah, there wasn't much change in our feelings from when we did predictions. We kind of all figured the title change. The title changes needed to happen. The one that didn't need to happen was the women's tag, which that match shouldn't even been on there. Um, but
I
y-
go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I was just gonna go on and say like the reason my rating was so high is because we got those title change we needed, and that's what kind of saved it for me. Match quality wise, it wasn't the greatest. Cause come on, how is Jay gonna wrap his arm around Gunther 2 seconds and be like, it's like no, 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 absolutely not. Hit another splash. There you go. I would have been much happier with that finish, but
Guy who's probably never put
a submission hold on somebody in his
yeah
entire
yeah
life.
like a chokehold in the ring at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
He they used to do the tequila sunrise and the Uso splash whenever they
Yeah.
were the Uso penitentiary, but never a chokehold.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is probably his first time doing it, and Gunther's just like, whoa, I'm gonna tap, yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna tap really quickly.
You mentioned that your favorite match was the Fatal 4-Way, which
Mhm.
I know you were anticipating that match, so I'm glad it delivered
Yeah.
for you.
They definitely delivered 100%.
I would say the two matches that I most enjoyed were the main event triple threat.
Yep.
I personally think that was match of the weekend.
Yeah.
And the other one that I really enjoyed was the street fight.
Oh,
That gave me everything that I wanted.
street fight was really good. They delivered. Priest put on a hell of a performance. Um, the going back to the triple threat match though, for night one, it sucks I didn't pick Seth to win because literally like 3 or 4 weeks before predictions, I was like, oh, what if Paul's gonna turn on both of them and work with Seth? But I was like, no, I'm not gonna pick them because CM Punk's got a WrestleMania moment. It's awesome. Yeah, I made the wrong decision there, folks.
I like to say Connor pulled a Connor.
Yep.
He predicted the correct results week in advance, yet psyched himself out when it came close to predicting the actual thing that he predicted.
Yeah. Yeah, I shot myself in the foot with that one. Um,
I love it because he'll predict something and I'll think, no, that's silly. And then weeks gone by, I'm thinking, that's actually starting to make sense. And so I'll pick his prediction, and then he psychs himself out. And so,
and then obviously look what happened Monday. So
well, I mean, with
But-
that said,
yeah. Your reigning champion is still Tyler. He beat us 12, and then the rest of us had 11. Elijah got a half a point
yeah.
for correcting.
Well,
for,
1.5 for the triple threat.
Oh,
'Cause
that's right. He picked Seth and
Paul to turn.
Okay.
So, even though it's for content, maybe you should start keeping your predictions to yourself. That way Elijah doesn't steal it.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
But with that said, it was a close race.
Yep.
Out of 18 total points, we had 11 for Connor and Ryan, 11.5 for Elijah, and 12 for myself. Funny enough, the tiebreaker that we ended up having was the longest match.
Yep.
That was the point that changed everything, because as far as matches for WrestleMania go, we were all tied.
We were pretty much tied. I ended up going into Sunday. I was down 2. I had pulled EO winning and then Dom winning, and those brought me back up. But then obviously I think they picked the Fatal 4-Way to be the longest match, and it ended up being the Triple Threat Night 1, which makes sense. That match deserved to be the main event. And looking back, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, that match just should not be main event. I don't want it. I don't need it as main event. Looking back at it 4 days later, I'm very, very thankful that was main event, because this was, I hate being that guy, but I think they threw all their eggs in last year's WrestleMania.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
this year, we're not gonna do too much with it. This year is gonna be big. It's in Vegas. It's gonna be huge. No, it wasn't. I gave it such a high rating because of the title changes. Like I said, my reasoning were because we got the championship changes we needed.
Sure. Sure.
but match quality, it was not all that great. Um,
Yeah, you had first night. I didn't miss a single prediction as far as matches go. I had every single match right, but Sunday I did not do so hot. Connor picked EO. He ended up winning that point because I ended up picking Rhea. She didn't get pinned, but she lost. I had Drew, got a point there. We all had Drew. We all had AJ. He lost.
yeah,
We had Randy's involvement there. We were mixed on the Fatal Four Way. Well, actually, we weren't because all you guys picked Dom, and I was the only one that picked Penta, so I lost
yeah.
big time on that point.
Which again, you even said it though. You said this might be early, but I'm gonna pick Penta because yeah, I'm not saying Penta didn't deliver, but that's way too early to give him a title chance.
Yeah, when we'll talk about that in a
Right.
minute, but and then we all had Liv and Raquel because we didn't know that there was going to be a surprise opponent.
And
Uh,
the minute you heard Becky, it's like
It's like, well,
throw all the papers out the window there, cause
and then we all had Cena, so
yeah,
that led into us being tied at that point, and then the extra bonus is which is the longest match: Andre the Giant, Street Profits, Machine Guns, all the extracurricular.
on Smack, kind of the SmackDown stuff.
Yeah, that's what changed our fates a little bit, but until Backlash in less than 3 weeks, and still your
Which
reigning defending predicting champ.
if let's talk about Backlash real quick.
Yeah, we can parlay that into talking about Monday Night Raw
It
itself, but yeah,
it started off quite interesting. Cause Cena came out, did what he did. He said, "I have 27 more dates, appearances. I never said matches. I said appearances."
appearances. Yeah.
So he said, "Y'all better take one look, one final picture." And all of a sudden, you hear the crowd erupting, and then out of the back of Cena's left shoulder, he got a little taste of an RKO. And I love the fact that he said "shit" right on the microphone. I love they let him do that. But I like I said a little bit ago, I think we're gonna get an early Cena title run. Like it's kind of like when he won 16. He only had it till Elimination Chamber.
Now, where's your feeling in that? Because it seems to me that the story is leading us in a position to where Cena holds it for most of the year, maybe until November. So where's your thoughts and feelings on why it's going to end that soon?
I think it's gonna end that soon, and I hate doing it. But you watch Sunday night and Cena's step in the ring is 10 times slower than it was obviously 10 years ago. He hasn't put on a solid wrestling match in my opinion since 2015. He just seems to be getting a step slower every time he gets in the ring. Now he pulled off some cool moves, you know. They got to him and Cody laid in the ring, whatever. Him and Cody, the finish was the finish, but I don't think Cena can carry a match as much as he used to. Yeah, he was doing his normal calling the match with Cody, like putting his head, talking to him and everything. But I think with Backlash being in St. Louis, and I think you have somebody now chasing 17.
Mm.
You got a guy that's still going to be there for another 5 years. That's full time. Yeah, I think you got to give it to Randy.
So the curious question I have then is, does Cena get it back before the year's over with?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think with him having 27 more appearances, however they're going to do the 27 appearances, I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on giving him another one because then that defeats the purpose of the moment of him winning 17, in my opinion. Other people might think, oh no, he can just win it back and win 18. That's fine. I'd be okay with that because it's John Cena. Um, but I think I've been really big on full time champions. And as much as I love the fact that Cena is a world champion again and he's won number 17, he's not a full time competitor. He's not sticking around every Monday till December. He's not. He's got 27 more dates. I don't even know how many more weeks we have left of the year, but I know it's not 27. It might be. I don't know. But it's just we need a full-time champion, and I think Randy's going to pull it off at St. Louis. So early prediction for Backlash right now in St. Louis, Randy takes the win and gets the WWE title because he is now chasing 17 as he is at 14. So kickstart his time to go beat Cena. He wins it at St. Louis.
I'm with you on the thought that if he loses it, he won't be winning it back because it dilutes a little bit of the moment of winning 17. However, because of that, I don't think he's losing it so soon because this whole year is built on his retirement tour, and I think this heel Cena is going to be in a position to where he is going to do whatever it takes to keep the championship. And what bigger of a heel moment than cheating, or who even knows if they're really committing to the bit, having Travis Scott come out and screw over Randy in St. Louis? That's a big heel moment.
Yeah.
And no matter what, we've had people in the past, General, people who aren't really good wrestlers who will be WWE champion, and can't really carry a match. We've had people like that. We've also had people.
I'm sorry, you had a tickle in your throat and a cough there. What was that you
Yeah,
said?
I'm just getting over being sick.
Oh, that's fair.
Just,
What?
just pretty recently. We've also had people in the past, Brock Lesnar, people who aren't there all the time, and because they're an attraction. However, with that guy, he's also not always been there every single month. Cena, however, looks like he's going to be there for May's Backlash. He looks like he's going to be there for June's Money in the Bank. So at the very least, he'll be here
2 pay-per-views
in a row. And he's, of course, going to be there for SummerSlam. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So that just means he wouldn't maybe not be there for July, but he'll be there for August at the very least.
But and that's where it's tough to go on. And that's why I'm basing my decision is because, Cena's retirement tour is a big deal. But at the same time, they went a whole year with having a guy as a champion every single day, or every single day. He was there every single day. He was at the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, whatever dates you needed him. Cody Rhodes was there. And Cody, props to you on a good title reign. It wasn't the best title reign, but it wasn't the worst one I've ever seen. Hopefully when you get it back, we'll get a better title reign in my opinion. But you'll get better matches. You won't get thrown into the bloodline crap. You'll be able to do your own thing.
Yeah, a lot of Cody's reign felt like he was distracted, or he was just treading water until we could get Roman back in the equation, which when we finally got into things like the Kevin Owens rivalry, that's really when his
title reign
started to pick up. Yeah, because there was personal stakes attached to it. Most of his other matches were just like, hey, here's a great wrestler to have a match against. Let's have a match
Let's
against
throw
him.
you with Logan Paul. Let's throw you with
AJ Styles.
And
then finally, when he got a story with Kevin Owens, it's like, okay, this is something I can sink our teeth into.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't wait until we have the match with Randy.
Which now it can't happen until next WrestleMania.
Maybe, yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, we had a champion that was there every week, and now you're going back to a champion who's going to be there.
Now, I will say this. 27 dates is what we got right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as it stands, if you were to have him on the go-home show for every pay-per-view, and he shows up for every pay-per-view, that's 16 dates. That leaves him with
11
extra.
more days.
11 more days, yeah.
Okay.
So, theoretically, he could be here at least on the go-home show and the pay-per-view, yeah. And that leaves him with 11 extra dates to where he could pepper in throughout. So, yes, that's not a full-time schedule, and I understand the frustration. I do. I get that. but he can at least be present
Yeah,
for the build.
right. And he puts it down best as anyone with on the mic. So he can be gone for a month, put it down on the mic, and then be like, all right, cool, because he did that with Cody. I was not expecting him to be there on SmackDown last week. I didn't know he was showing up, but it's kind of cool he did. But
Yeah.
um,
But the fact that some people might say, "Oh, we're getting Randy Orton versus John Cena again." Whoop-de-doo. But it's different.
it definitely is different because
Yeah.
roles are reversed.
Yeah.
Normally in the rivalry with these two, Cena's the good guy, Randy's the bad guy. We're getting a Cena bad guy and a Randy good guy. I'm excited to see this feud go on because yeah, everybody's like, oh, these guys are old, they can't keep up, blah 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 blah. Randy Orton is probably in the best shape of his entire career. Taking that time off to actually like recover from back surgery and taking all the time he needed, he's earned that right to do that.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it, that also puts another reason why I'm going with it. He earned that reason that right to take off all that time and train and get his back right. And we didn't think he was going to come back, but then he surprises us, comes back. He has earned the right to be a champion and potentially beat Cena. Now that obviously we have 17, Reigns doesn't have to chase 16.
Right.
He has to chase that 17. So why not start it now with giving him number 15? And then on the following whatever, him and John can go back and forth and go say, John, if I lose this title, I got two more. Like he can be like, I got three more than I take over. It's like,
I think there's more to milk with the Cena
yeah,
retirement story. I don't think he's losing it just yet.
no,
Although I am looking forward to the match, and if it just so happens that Randy does win and I don't want to say surprises us all, but ends up fulfilling your prediction, then hey, what an interesting avenue to do. But Cena opened the show on Raw, and just as an overall statement and feeling, me personally, this was one of the few times in the last 5 years that I think the WrestleMania after Raw was better than WrestleMania itself.
yes. We had some good moments on Raw. We had that.
Because the first time that really happened was in 2013. WrestleMania 29 was garbage.
Yeah,
And then the Raw after WrestleMania for that year was better than the show is or was, because you had people like Dolph Ziggler cashing into a raucous, crazy reception,
yeah,
some of the biggest of all time. But I have been kind of disappointed with the Raw after WrestleMania over the past few years, but this year delivered in a big way.
yeah. I think we didn't really get too many big surprises, which I'm fine with that. Um, but I'll alleviate it to you because I want to talk about the the ending of the night. That's kind of
Okay.
what I would like to talk about because there's a lot to talk about there, and a certain character has now entered the Paul Heyman scene. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But I mean, like I said, there wasn't too many surprises. I was fine with the way Monday was, because you don't always need surprises. Yeah, okay, Cena and Orton, that's old rivalry, but it's new. You had Rhea come out and save Io from getting her ass beat by whoever. Wasn't it? Her and Stephanie had a match, and then I think it wasn't Cora that came out, was it?
It was Roxanne and
Roxanne.
Julia.
Okay. So they came out, beat the crap out of them. Rhea comes out, saves her, hands her the towel, says like the Power Ranger thing. They're like the Power Ranger nod, you know? It's like, but um, but yeah, and then you had Cross and AJ interaction, and I'm excited to see what that storyline's looking like. But
Speaking of head nod, when the New Day came out for their segment, which was basically them trying to set up a tag team championship match with Alpha Academy. I don't know if you saw this, but on their way down to the ring, Karrion Kross was backstage. He had his arms crossed, and as the New Day were passing his way, he kind of did this. He did the, and they did the back. So that's just a little acknowledgement of Karrion Kross was trying to get Xavier Woods to turn and
Yeah.
to embrace his dark side, and then they were like, "Hey, yeah, you helped me become who I am now."
There's I think there's one good thing that came from the whole WrestleMania weekend.
What's that?
We got a return. It wasn't on Rusev Day, but Rusev returned. And dude, he looks scary.
So
And
I take it you haven't seen him probably since he left WWE.
I saw videos on that other crap. I mean, sorry, I saw them on AEW, but blonde hair.
Oh yeah, yeah. At
Really?
a given point, yeah.
And then what else did he do? Nothing.
Because he always wanted to look strong and be strong, but AEW didn't always want to book him strong, so therefore they had a compromise. Well, if you don't want to lose, you're just not going to be on the show. So he was kind of barely on the
Huh.
show.
Sounds like Daddy's boy Tony Khan is a little bitch, but okay, yeah.
I love that they did the Braun Strowman route with this, where guy who's way over with the crowd and looks like a jacked bad mofo comes out and just destroys the tag
Yep.
division. That's basically
Yeah.
Braun Strowman's
Yeah,
MO.
and that's when they brought Braun Strowman back after he got fired. They were like, Braun Strowman's back. It was the middle of a tag match, I think. So Rusev just got to do it better. But
I don't inherently like the fact that a singles guy is coming in and destroying this separate division.
well, you gotta destroy the lesser talent. He can't just go and destroy AJ Styles. I mean, ooh, imagine if he had just if AJ was out in the ring and Rusev just
Came out and was like,
okay, I would have been on board
see,
with
that's
that.
what I'm saying.
But,
You come in and you attack a main eventer
but
on night one, and that showcases, wow, this guy means business. However, I will give them credit because the idea that this guy can come back and destroy two people instead of just one does make a statement. And I will say, the idea of Rusev versus Otis in a match, I'm there for it. Okay, two guys who just are V as all get out. But that match is gonna be like 2 minutes, and Rusev is just gonna
yeah, he's gonna do the super kick, then the submission. But
the accolade. It was funny. Elijah was texting me as the night was going on, and when Rusev showed up, he goes, "The night could end here. The night could end here, and I would be happy."
Yeah, I'm very thankful they brought him back. It was a long time coming. I think getting rid of him was a horrible idea, but you just had nothing for him. But there's also a problem with bringing a guy back because WWE has a hard time writing stories about characters. And okay, yeah, he came back and defeat the tag. He blew up the tag division, but what's he gonna do? Who's his first target? Is he going after IC? Is he gonna go after Jay? I mean, does he go after AJ? Like, what does he go? Where does he go from here as a singles competitor? We'll have to just watch next week and obviously the following weeks and see storyline wise what makes sense. But
Well, yeah, it looks like he's going to be on Raw going forward, and the curiosity of, okay, is he going to be in the main event? Is he going to be in the mid card? Where it's the curiosity of where does he fit in the lineup?
I think we may get that answer next Monday because I don't. I wasn't too thrilled with Sammy coming out because that kind of felt like Sammy's gonna do something, and I'm not too happy about it. About when Jay was out there doing his eating and celebrating and all that, and Sammy's sitting there behind him when he's standing up there eating on the crowd or whatever.
Well, they had their moment. They celebrated all together as a Samoan family, Sammy Uso and all that. And then when he was on the turnbuckle, Sami Zayn just kind of gave a little like,
Yeah, it's like, are we really pulling that card?
Well, okay, this is where I get to have my cake and eat it too. I predicted. Now this was before Kevin Owens got hurt. I predicted that he and KO was going to make him see the light or whatever, and he was going to turn on Jay. I still think he will turn on Jay, and we get that feud.
Oh,
And
excuse me.
I'm all for it. Not to say that Sammy isn't a great hero. He plays a babyface really well. But at the same time, the story could call for it. Hey, this guy who was in the tag division, and is now breaking out as a single star, won a world championship before you, a guy who's been in the singles division nearly his entire career.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some jealousy there,
I
and
could
that
see.
could play out in a story.
Yeah, I could see that. We'll just have to see because I don't really know how healthy Sammy is, but
But it didn't have to happen right away.
No,
It does. Jey Uso
no.
could face somebody else, and then within that time frame, Sami Zayn could help him out, and then he could look at what Jay's doing. And he goes, "I've had to hold your hand and help you out these last few months,"
Right.
and that could go off as something. I personally, in combining it with what Rusev's going to be doing, he's someone that I could definitely see holding the Intercontinental Championship and just running with that.
Yeah.
Because get him in a match with Dom. It's just like there's no contest there.
Yeah. But
But he could also be someone that you just slide into a program with Jey Uso, because people already know him. He's a big name. He's established in WWE. You don't have to spend time rebuilding him back
right.
up. He comes back and people are like, "Holy crap, it's Rusev! I know Rusev."
Yeah.
Like Elijah, he freaked out. He's like, "Oh, it's Rusev! Wow."
Wait, his name's Miro. What are you talking about?
Yeah. AEW fan over here.
Okay. A little far fetched, bub.
A little far.
No, I'm just kidding.
But no, you could slide him in because he's had zero build, and
Right.
it's like there's no stakes. There's,
right.
Meaning Rusev doesn't need to have a lot of momentum to go in. He could go in, lose a match. It's like, well, I just got back. I'm just getting my groove.
Yeah.
And then once he comes back, loses the world title match, realizes, hey, I've got more work to do. That's when you start his character build.
Yeah. I also think we could also be in that position where we know Dom's not losing that title anytime soon.
I
Or-
certainly thought we were going to have a Zack Ryder situation.
Uh,
I texted Elijah. I said, I hope you enjoyed your one-day Dom reign. I loved Finn Balor's reaction because you could see he was smiling, but he's like super pissed.
He's like, I'm gonna beat your ass at Backlash.
Yeah.
But no, I we're not getting that title reign short. So throwing him and Rusev in a match together doesn't make sense right now. That could be a SummerSlam match. Rusev could get his IC title win. I'm not disagreeing with you on the Sammy and Jey Uso stuff. I would be okay with that because Sammy should have been a world champion already, in my opinion. He should. I love Roman's reign. It was great. He had it for over 1,500 days or whatever it was. You could have had Sammy beat him.
Yeah.
And that would have popped the pop that would have happened at Elimination Chamber. Like that would have created a whole whirlwind of mess. But it's okay. Or that's when you could have split up the world titles. You could have been like, hey, I wanted to face you, but for that one or that one. It's like then Roman could still have been a champion, gone on to lose to Cody at Mania, whatever. But or
just means that Cody's moment may have been lessened a little bit, but you still would have had two white hot baby faces.
So, but I don't know. Rusev's is going to be a very interesting character build the next couple weeks.
And we won't even mention what happened with the women's tag team division because it's like I hate so much when WWE does this, where they have a result at WrestleMania and then literally the next night, they switch it around.
They did the Zack Ryder moment
because it makes it feel like watching Mania was pointless.
Because okay, what you could have done, you could have just had Becky beat her ass at Mania, and then the next night Becky gets the title match. Becky wins. There's your new IC champion.
Exactly. That's exactly
who might actually compete every week.
Right. Not only do you have the big moment of her returning, you also have it to where she loses the match and she's like, "I went out of my way to help you, and you lost. You don't deserve me." And that's when you do the turn that
and you
night.
don't deserve that IC title, so I'm coming after you tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
there you go.
Sets intrigue for Monday Night Raw.
But they wanted to have her little daughter at the post press conference, so they made her feel good about winning. But anyways, let's talk about the real story here.
Yeah, everything else was pretty much cut and dry. Great match between EO and Stephanie. That was a surprise in of itself.
Yeah,
but we all knew that they weren't going to have either of them lose.
But
as far as the main meat of the show, we had great moments.
Yep.
Great returns, but the big meat of the show is the last segment.
Yes. And obviously, if you guys watched, if you haven't already, go watch WrestleMania Night 1. We have an alliance forming. We had Paul and Seth show up. CM Punk got butthurt, ran to the ring, got his ass kicked. Roman comes out because he's butthurt.
I was surprised that Roman was there
I
to begin
too.
with.
That one was a little shocking. I figured he would come out first, but then CM Punk went out first. So
I didn't even think Roman was going to be there.
It kind of makes sense for him to be there just because it's the night after Mania.
Well, yeah, but you know Roman, he's
on a part-time-ish schedule. So
like if he doesn't have to be here, he
right.
won't.
But it's setting up for a storyline for Backlash. So you get those two to come out. They're beating the crap. They're getting their ass kicked, or they're beating up. Seth beats up CM Punk. Seth gets beat up by Roman. Roman, Superman punches Paul, getting ready for the spear, and the Roman eats the spear. What the actual flip are we doing? You're giving Paul Heyman Braun Breaker. And you've got Seth Rollins as the visionary, the architect. What in the actual flip is going on? And who else are we getting to join that group?
See, yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be a semblance of two-man power trip. Not to the level of Hunter and Austin, because both of those guys were at the top of their game.
Right.
This is more like Rollins with Flair, in a sense, a non-wrestling Flair, but someone who's been around in the wrestling business. But Rollins in this Triple H mode, and Breaker more like
the Batista role. We're getting a second Evolution, but I guarantee they don't call themselves Evolution. But
no. So the wonder is, are we going to get a third, or are we just going to have Rollins mold Breaker, kind of like he was doing with Murphy with his Messiah gimmick?
Or are we going to get... We've got the Flair and Heyman. Kind of. We've got the Paul...
I heard that.
We got the Paul Heyman, Ric Flair-ish moment. Seth is the Triple H in this.
Yeah.
Batista, Braun Breaker's Batista. We need a Randy Orton. And I hate saying this because I can't stand the guy. But do they put Austin Theory in that role?
Oh.
Do we get an Austin Theory as the Randy Orton because he's
young,
good-looking, cocky kid? He breaks away from Waller because they'll do whatever. He'll get tagged in. Austin Theory doesn't like that. Beats the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Seth comes up to him in the back, says, "Join us." He doesn't join him. He contemplates it a couple weeks. Those two are in a match with whoever at Backlash. And then Austin Theory comes out, interrupts the match. That's how you set up your new Evolution. I think we're getting Austin Theory added to this.
I don't hate that.
In some way, shape, or form, Austin Theory, I think, should be the third man in this group.
I don't hate that at all. I think that's a really smart play
because when Cena said it right. If you beat me, you lose. If you lose, you already lost. Like, if you beat me, if you beat me, you lose because they're gonna hate you.
Mm.
They already hate Austin Theory, but this is such a good way to build him back up after 2 years of doing a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
You put him with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, who's already a megastar in and of himself. You put those three guys and one of the greatest managers slash advocates slash wise men in WWE history
Mm-hmm.
together. Raw's in for some trouble. That's if they stay on Raw. We could get them on SmackDown Friday. Who knows? We won't know till Friday night. But
I don't think Rollins is ever moving from Raw.
I don't think so.
That's his show.
Yeah. But dude, like I said, I think we're in for a rough awakening with those guys.
I like your prediction of if they're going to add one more person. I think that's a really good extra person to have.
Because I'm trying to think of who they could add right now, and Theory's probably the only one because he was being built like Cena. Cena never got the faction, except now I guess he's kind of a faction with Travis and The Rock. But Cena never got that. Austin,
Well, on the main roster, Theory's never really had faction, if you will. But on NXT, he was with The Way.
right? But you put you if you were trying to build Austin Theory up to be like John Cena, this is a good start to do that. I I truly think Austin Theory could be the next John Cena without all the championships. He may win a world championship here or there. There's always he could always win the world heavyweight title. I don't think he'll ever win the WWE title. Um, but
You don't think he'll ever win a main championship?
no, I think he'll win like the world heavyweight title. I don't think he'll ever win the title
be
because
the
obviously
guy.
he's the B title. Let's be honest, the world heavyweight title has always been the B title. I think he'll be that kind of competitor where he'll continue winning world titles, but he'll only win the world heavyweight title.
Okay, so that's what I was looking up. I was trying to think. I could have swore when Rollins was doing the Monday Night Messiah gimmick, I could have swore that Theory also worked with them for a brief period of time, him and Murphy, and it looks like that was the case at least.
Yeah, it looks like it for a half a second.
Yeah, for just a little bit. I don't think he was in there as much as
Theory was
Murphy was. Yeah, but I was pretty sure he worked. So there's at least some prior interaction that they could feed off of.
Right. So that's where I'm getting at with this new faction, and because I was just thinking about this the other day. You have him lose the IC title. What's next for Braun Breaker? This is a good way to tell us what's next. You give Paul Heyman Braun Breaker. I don't want anything to do with that. Not like as a wrestler. I want that as a fan. Like I'm very on board with that. It kind of reminds me of Brock Lesnar, a young Brock Lesnar. Breaker's a little bit more athletic than Brock is, but you're giving Paul Heyman another young Brock Lesnar character.
Right.
So I'm definitely on board with this new faction. Because I was trying to figure out what they could do with Breaker. The only thing I would have thought was Jay's out there. He comes down from the thing, and Braun spears him, and he's like, it's like that. But we had that with Cena, so we can't already have that with Jay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which would make sense why nothing happened in that segment.
Right.
On Raw. I personally, nothing against Jay, nothing against the world title. What he's doing now is a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
Being aligned with one of the top stars in the company and one of the top managers, one of the top developers of talent in the company, I think is way better for him in the long run
Right, and
than just a one-off world title feud.
right, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I was just saying, in my mind, what I was thinking was, well, I guess
Well, that's what he could have
right.
done.
He
Yeah.
could have just speared Jay and been like, "I'm next," kind of thing. But Goldberg,
Well, exactly. Yeah.
but no, this is the right move for WWE putting Braun Breaker with these two. And again, as much as I dislike Austin Theory, I'd be on board with Austin Theory if they put him in this faction. But
super on board with this. Uh, Definitely something I'm looking forward to watching week after week.
Yes.
This will be very entertaining. And if I'm not saying that this group is going to be like this, but even if it's a semblance of how Evolution was, where you have the top guy and his mentors, and then a really good advocate in the background.
yeah,
Which it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, obviously, because you don't have Ric Flair in there, and Seth Rollins is not the character that Triple H was. You're going to have two completely different stories, but just the
Right.
semblance, the structure of the group is there of
Mhm.
guy at the top of his game, person who's orchestrating things in the background and helping the group stay together, and then two young guns. It's got that semblance. So
Yeah.
if we get a little bit of a Evolution vibe from this group, I'd be happy to watch and see that because I love Evolution's construction, and
Yep.
they were one of my favorite factions.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I loved the Raw after WrestleMania. I think it completely delivered, and
I'm excited to see what SmackDown has to offer because they got some shoes to fill with Raw.
yeah, and
think this
they're at
is-
least starting off on the right foot because the TLC match,
Yep.
and then we might have a return scheduled for Friday.
They're supposed to be. I think it's I think we might be getting a certain return. I saw his date is supposed to be Friday, but you never know.
April 25th.
Yeah.
They were announcing that on SmackDown a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah, it's like
it mysterious black cloud, and it's like, huh?
and as much as I love the Joe Henry segment, you got to put that at Mania against Orton,
Oh, you think so?
but it's all right though. I'm glad Joe Henry got his moment. I'm glad TNA got some recognition on the grandest stage for them all.
Yeah.
Because in our lifetime, for as long as we can remember, Vince was strictly anti anybody else. He wouldn't even winked up. He wouldn't even batted an eye at the idea.
And
But for Triple H to come out and they have this partnership ish.
well, it's not even partnership. They bought him.
Oh, it's outright bought.
Yeah, they
Okay.
bought AAA.
Well, no, I'm talking about the TNA.
Oh, TNA. Okay,
But but Vince was so against buying any other company that it was like WWE, WWE, WWE. Triple H is branching out. They, as he noted, they totally bought out AAA wrestling. It's a Mexican promotion. It's a high flying action. I've seen videos on it. It's fantastic. But for TNA, the arch rival of WWE, AEW out the fucking window.
yeah.
In our lifetime, we never thought we would see a TNA champion in any WWE capacity,
No.
let alone WrestleMania. But since this partnership's going on, we finally got that moment, and people are saying that WWE buried Joe Henry. Really? Joe Henry is the only person in TNA history to ever walk on stage at WrestleMania with the TNA World Heavyweight title. And the fact WWE is letting him take that title with him is amazing. Mickey James started that because she was Knockouts champion, showed up the Rumble.
Yeah.
Then you had whatever the big woman's name
Trinity and Jordan Grace.
is. Yeah, Jordan Grace. You had Jordan Grace come out with the title. And then Joe Henry comes out with the title. It's like, this is so weird seeing. We need a Worlds Collide pay-per-view between these two. But anyways,
We kind of had it already with Roadblock,
yeah,
but it's not to the level of what they're going to do with AAA
right.
in June.
But I think this might be the first time, I'm saying this now, Raw's gonna be a better week than SmackDown. I don't think
This week?
I think Yeah, the triple threat match is gonna be cool. We got Alistair possibly returning, but
Well, if you're considering Friday to Monday instead of Monday to Friday, like our week is normally Friday to Monday
right,
type deal, and if you're considering WrestleMania SmackDown versus WrestleMania Raw, WrestleMania SmackDown was not very good at
no,
all. WrestleMania Raw was fantastic.
right. So SmackDown after WrestleMania is probably not gonna be as good as the Raw after Mania. So we'll just have to see what happens on Friday.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll do a little bit of a retrospective of Monday versus Friday, and
yeah,
then we'll also compare Friday
to next
next
Monday.
this Friday to
To
next
next
Monday.
Monday, because then we'll be back on normal schedule. We'll be talking about the two shows, and we won't have WrestleMania talk every week. And
Which, in that comparison, you'd hope that the Friday after WrestleMania is going to be better than
yes,
the next week Monday. But we digress.
but
With that being said, any final comments on the weekend as a whole, or excited at the direction we're heading?
I'm excited. I'm more excited than anything. I was a I was so ready for WrestleMania before Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber, I was like, all right, that needs to go out the window. WrestleMania showed up, did not deliver. Yeah, we had the great title changes that we needed to happen. Um, but I am excited for Raw because of the new faction. I'm ready
Mm,
to hear what Seth and Braun have to say. But then Friday, I'm excited for the TLC match and seeing what goes from there. Uh, What kind of surprises we get? What Cody has to say if Cody shows up?
yeah.
What's gonna happen Friday determines the future Fridays going into St. Louis and Clash in Paris and all these pay per views we have coming up. So I'm more excited than anything. I think now that WrestleMania is out the window, we can finally look forward to seeing a set moment because, like I said, 10 weeks of WrestleMania
Mm,
build up is a long time.
yeah.
Um, we're gonna kickstart off Friday. I think they kickstarted off great Monday, but we're just gonna keep it going. There's gonna be lots to talk about next week, though.
Yeah, you don't. At this point, you don't have the weight of Mania on your
Yep.
shoulders. You can just book a good weekly show to a good weekly match, and then go on to build towards these pay-per-views. You don't
Yep.
have to worry about, oh, is this good enough to be on WrestleMania, or how do we fit the gravitas of the event? It's just like, no, we're gonna put a great match on Backlash,
Yep.
and that's how it's gonna be.
Mhm.
So that I'm looking forward to taking off the burden of WrestleMania.
Yep.
And who knows, if Backlash has a good enough card, maybe we make a trip down. Not well, maybe.
Maybe.
It's close enough to where it would consider it, but
Yeah.
that's Elijah's like, we gotta go, and I'm thinking, man, we just paid X amount of dollars for the Rumble earlier this year. You think I got that kind of money?
Right.
I said, if you're paying, great.
You've got never mind.
Yeah,
Anyways.
he's got other responsibilities that I think need to take priority.
Yes.
Both of you guys.
Yep.
But with that said, I want to thank you guys for joining and listening to us here on the WrestleMania Recap edition of the K.T.E Wrestling Podcast. Talked about the Mania weekend as a whole, Friday to Monday, the before SmackDown, the after Raw, and in betweens. And no matter how you felt about Mania itself, whether it be happy about the title changes, sad about the outcome, it's Mania, and the hype is always there.
Yep.
You can be disappointed,
Mhm.
as I was, but I was still happy to be with people that I know, people that I loved, and enjoyed the whole weekend, as it were.
Yep.
It's not often you get the opportunity to pretty much have everyone you know watch.
Yeah, it's especially with things going on outside of this room. There's a lot going on, so it's hard to get us together. So when we do, it's always a good time.
Yeah, having
So,
you guys on Friday, having the people that I did on Sunday, it
yeah.
was great. So, with that said, we want to thank you for joining us once again, and we hope to see you next week when we talk about SmackDown and Raw and where they're going in the new season of WWE. Until then, this has been the K.T.E Wrestling Podcast.